I can see and hear you, thank you.
No, that's fine. Councillor, sorry, that's fine. Yep.
No, do you want me to do it now?
Absolutely, yep. Just do your microphone, please, Councillor Cypher. Yeah, no, just that's fine.
For the August, I just have to get my diary up. August, the first meeting in August, which is the 9th and 10th of August, which is the strategy meeting on the 9th,
Yeah,
and the council meeting on the 10th of August, please.
All right. All right. No one's noticed John McDougall's just entered the chambers at all. Councillors, Councillor Cypher is seeking that leave on the 9th and the 10th. Certainly the 10th is the one really interested for the absence of leave of absence for that meeting. Someone happy to move that leave of absence, please? Moved by Councillor Carpenter, second Councillor Rolfe. All in favour? Against? Councillor Brimley-Combs for. Thank you. Granted. Councillors, I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet, and I made reference yesterday in our strategy meeting as to the particular relevance of certainly that recognition and reconciliation action plan strength that lies in our council, certainly during NAIDOC celebrations for the Central Highlands. They extend a little longer than a lot of other places, but we're very grateful and very pleased to do that. So we acknowledge all the traditional owners and First Nations people of the Central Highlands and our near neighbours, and we pay respects to their elders past, present and emerging. And I thank councillors for your participation in NAIDOC events to date, and the fact that our First Nations communities feel very much at ease in certainly acknowledging you councillors participating in their events, and are very, very pleased that we attend and show that respectfulness. Can I also note, please, the passing of one of our elders most recently. As is the custom, we don't mention her name, but we certainly acknowledge that and we pay our respects to her as well. Councillors, we don't have an opening prayer today. I think we had Pastor Wade Cooper on the roster. We're not going to dob him in, but I think at time to time there are some vacancies in that roster. So unfortunately we won't have that prayer today. So we will rely on our own good faith to get us through today. Councillors, confirmation of the previous minutes was what we'll get into now. So we had a couple of councillors. The minutes of the special budget meeting, the 28th of June 2022. Is someone happy to move those? Moved by Councillor Carpenter, second Councillor Rolfe. Now, councillors, as you can appreciate, that is a long and pretty extensive budget document. It's quite peculiar in its references to certainly the resolutions and then the subsequent reports to it. I always find it a bit problematic, but obviously the substance is what we're dealing with there, and it is quite comprehensive. Is everyone happy with those as the correct minutes? Councillor Brimacombe, you're happy with those? Okay, thank you. So it's been moved and seconded. All in favour? Councillor Brimacombe's in favour. Against? Thank you. Councillors, the second one is the minutes of the General Council meeting that followed that, which was the same day. Is someone happy to move those, please? Councillor Daniels has moved those. Councillor Burns has seconded them. We'll do the same thing, Councillor, if we can just have a look at those to make sure that's an accurate record. Happy with those? Happy with those, Councillor Brimblecombe?
Yep.
Thank you. Well, councillors, they've been moved and seconded. All in favour? Councillor Brimblecombe's in favour. Against? Great, thank you, councillors. That's carried. Any business arising out of those minutes, either of those two? All right, councillors, those outstanding meeting actions are there in your agendas. Is there anything there that you wanted to comment on? As you can appreciate, there's a few little, it's got a little bit substantive, mainly with just the substance of some of those rating charges and fees. If there's no questions there. Upcoming agenda items, councillors, you know the process there in terms of our upcoming agenda items for strategic and briefing and or these meetings, and you can make application to have something extended to those. Councillors, anything of conflicts of interest today in this meeting? Not already declared. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Brimblecombe, nothing to declare?
Nothing to declare.
All right, councillors, the substance of our agenda today starts off with the corporate services agenda item in relation to the review of delegations of council to the CEO. And I'll ask General Manager Margaret Gatt, and I think we should acknowledge before we start today, this may in fact be your last council meeting here today.
It's definitely my last council meeting.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you for that absolutely clarified position there, Councillor Margaret. Councillor Margaret. Well, you can be Councillor Margaret for just one day, but General Manager, thank you very much, and we'll certainly get the chance to acknowledge you at morning tea at 10:30 this morning. So enjoy your last meeting, but certainly you can lead us off with this first report. Thanks, Margaret.
Thank you, Mayor Hayes. Good morning, councillors. I'll just hand straight over to Maggie to take us through the review of the delegations register. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager Gatt. Through the Chair, good morning, Mayor and councillors. In my opening remarks for this item, I wish to advise that it was only noted this morning that a copy of the Delegations Register, Council to Chief Executive Officer, has not been uploaded to the hub as it was supposed to be, and available for you to review. This has now been corrected, and a copy of the Delegations Register is uploaded to the hub early this morning. The register that's uploaded has a number of changes marked in it in red. Those changes are those that are reflected in the report that's before you today. So there was no difference between what was in the register that should have been uploaded. The report before you today is to seek a resolution from Council to delegate the Chief Executive Officer to the Chief Executive Officer the powers detailed in the Delegations Register Council to Chief Executive Officer, updated as at the 13th of July 2022. The report also asks Council to note that the Delegations Register Council to Chief Executive Officer has been reviewed and updated accordingly and reflects those changes to delegable powers under the state legislation. And as I mentioned, a summary of those changes are presented within the report on page number 156 of Council's business papers. Section 2575 of the Local Government Act of 2009 requires Council to review annually a delegation to the Chief Executive Officer. Council's Delegations Register Council to CEO was last reviewed and endorsed by Council on the 16th of June 2021. A review of Council to CEO delegations for 2022, based on the information provided by the Local Government Association of Queensland Delegation Service, has now been completed. The information provided by the LGAQ Delegation Service contains both new and updated legislation and is prepared by legal service providers. Subsequent to Council's resolution to delegate to the Chief Executive Officer the powers detailed in the Delegations Register Council to Chief Executive Officer, a review of the CEO to Employee Delegations Register will then be conducted during July and August. And this will be to reflect any changes in the legislation. We will undertake this in consultation with relevant council officers and ensure that those delegations that are identified are then examined and insured for delegations and for any policy changes that may need to be made. This is the end of my report, and I'm happy to take any questions that councillors may have. Thank you.
All right, if you don't mind, if I could just check again, councillors, you obviously received those and saw those changes that Maggie referred to, the uploaded ones? All good? So happy with those, so you've had a good read of those, all right. Any questions, councillors? I was hoping there was some significant delegation CEO, but I don't think there was anything. There's nothing substantive there. I don't think you. All right. Thank you very much, Maggie. I think, as you say, an opportunity to refresh those, and obviously delegations like that sometimes a little dry in nature, but certainly procedurally we should make sure we're over them. So, councillors, the recommendation is in two parts there. To delegate to the CEO the powers, details and the delegations register. And the second part is the Delegations Register Council to Chief Executive Officer has been reviewed and updated as of 13 July to reflect any changes to the delegable powers under the state legislation. So that's been checked. Someone happy to move those? Moved by Councillor Rolfe, seconded. Councillor Carpenter. All in favour? Councillor Brimelcombe is in favour. Against? Thank you, councillors. That's carried. Thank you, Maggie. The next agenda item, 12.2.2, is the Audit Committee meeting minutes there, and comes under Margaret Gatt's hand again. Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you, Mayor Hayes. Again, councillors, I'll just hand straight over to Maggie to take us through the Audit Committee meeting minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager Gatt. Through the Chair, again, good morning, Mayor and councillors. The report before you today is for Council to receive the unconfirmed minutes of the Central Highlands Regional Council Audit Committee meeting held on the 13th of May 2022. A copy of the unconfirmed minutes of the meeting is presented at Attachment 1, commencing on page 160 of the Council Business Papers. The Audit Chair has approved the unconfirmed minutes of the meeting to be presented to Council. I will take the report as read. I do wish to highlight some of the key matters that were discussed and for which papers were received across areas relating to Council's activities. And these are some of the key items that are listed in the report. The committee received the external auditor's briefing paper and discussed the representation of information within the QAO report to Parliament on the 2021-22 financial audit reporting for the local government sector. It also received position papers regarding Council's accounting practices and impacts to financial reporting of Council software as a service platform around landfill, rehabilitation provision and special rates recognition. It also received the QAO briefing for Audit Committee chairs and requested an update from management regarding Council's cybersecurity to the next Audit Committee meeting. This was as a result of the paper identifying that cybersecurity is a major and significant risk for Council, and that we need to be very vigilant in how we're managing our cybersecurity responses. It also received the final internal audit report for Council's development applications and endorsed recommendations to management contained within the report. I'd also like to highlight that it also acknowledged management's intent to nominate for participation in a select number of performance audit reports proposed in the QAO draft of 21-25, and Council is progressing towards participating in 3 audits proposed over the next 3 years, and that's also identified in the report. That's the closing of my report. Thank you, Mayor. I'll take any questions.
Thank you very much, Maggie. Councillor Rolfe, you have a question.
Sorry. Not a question, Mayor, but to Maggie, just to reiterate, I suppose, what the alignment between our Audit Committee, or between our corporate plan, 22 to 27, and our Audit Committee has really aligned, especially in things like the cybersecurity and our strategic risks management, which has really come a long way, and also the climate change actions through. So there's quite a lot of linkages there now, which is a good thing, I think.
Thank you, Councillor Rolfe.
Thanks, Councillor Rolfe. Any other questions? Look, I think it might be appropriate, and I think I don't mean to speak on behalf of the Chair, Graham Webb, and certainly Independent Member Jeff King, But certainly at that meeting, and it wouldn't have been known, I guess, at that time, certainly at the last Audit Committee meeting, our chair, who is an independent chair, certainly acknowledges the work of certainly the council, and we're not unique in having an audit committee, although there are local governments in the state that actually don't have them. They are very, very grateful for the extraordinary work that officers, our executive leadership team, provide in terms of the responsibility to their audit requirements and the provision of that information to be considered. And I hope they won't mind me saying that they have certainly always reiterated and acknowledged Margaret's work in that respect. Margaret tells the story, and I hope I'm not stealing some airtime that she might use later this morning, but she had quite an interesting introduction to audit committee meetings at a very tender age, and obviously her incredible skills in this particular part of her business repertoire has always stood this council in very good stead, to the point where Margaret has had certainly the opportunity over time to advise certainly Queensland Treasury Corporation, and in fact has had some interesting conversations with the Queensland Audit Office around certainly performances and reporting, and obviously proving that not everyone gets it right all the time. So Margaret's been a great scrutineer in respect of making sure there's been a scrupulous understanding of our responsibilities, and that runs two ways, so vice versa. So I just want to acknowledge certainly on behalf of that audit committee and certainly the members of the incredible work that Margaret's done, and importantly leaves a legacy in this place. All our team here, from certainly my time on the audit committee, are very much aware and understand and respect that audit function, and that only comes when that respect is actually taught to them, and that respect comes through practice. So Mark, you've had a big influence on that, and I want to thank you very much for that. So appreciate it.
Thank you.
So, councillors, the recommendation there is that the Central Highlands Regional Council receive those unconfirmed minutes of that audit committee meeting. Is someone happy to move those? Moved by Councillor Roll, seconded Councillor Carpenter. We're going to miss your moving and seconding today, Councillor Brimblecombe. You're somewhat restricted, but anyhow, we'll catch up. So, councillors, that resolution's been moved and seconded. All in favour? Councillor Brimblecombe, can you hear us and see us?
Yes, I can see and hear you.
Okay. All right. So you voted in favour of that resolution?
Yes, I have.
Thank you. Against? Thank you. That's carried. Thank you.
Oh.
Where are we up to now?
No, this one.
Oh, the next one. Yep.
Then-
Councillors, there must have been still some credit left on your contract, Margaret, because we're getting the blast out of you today. We're making sure that you deliver all these reports. Councillors, 12.2.3 refers to the amendments to the adopted fees and charges. You'll remember, I think Helen brought us one just recently, a little bit differently from when we adopted the fees and charges a little bit earlier. There's some more here, and I'll refer to General Manager Margaret to introduce this report.
Thank you, Mayor Hayes. Good morning, councillors again. Apologies for I think I'm losing my voice. I'm sure that a lot of people will be happy with that. The purpose of this report is to recommend amendments to our original 2022-23 fees and charges register, which was adopted on the 23rd of March 2022. This report, which proposes changes to fees relating to halls, cemeteries, refuse activities, represents the second amendment to the original adopted register. So in accordance with Section 97 of the Local Government Act, Council is required to maintain a register of cost recovery fees and charges, and it requires that a cost recovery fee must not be more than the cost to Council of taking the action for which the fee is charged. So in providing some of the rationale for these changes, I will just make some brief commentary. We obviously have General Manager McDougall here, that if there are any detailed questions around the actual dollar changes, you can refer those queries to him. So in regards to hall changes, there is currently inconsistency across the region in relation to the higher fees for halls and community centres. An hourly rate fee provides flexibility with booking arrangements to ensure users are not restricted to half-day and full-day bookings. On this basis, a new hourly rate fee is proposed for the hire of the Emerald Town Hall, Blackwater Community Hall, Blackwater Activity Centre, Doringa Community Centre, Ruby Vale Hall and the Comet Hall. In relation to cemetery fees, there is currently no fee adopted for an exhumation of any of the cemeteries in the region. A new fee is being proposed as price on application, as a contractor would be engaged to undertake the exhumation, setting the fee type as a POA, price on application, which would ensure that council fully recovers the cost of this service. Refuse fees. As part of the adoption of the 22-23 Fees and Charges Register, refuse tyre fees for both weighbridge and without weighbridge were increased. To correct administrative error in the register, it is proposed that the unit measurement for this fee is amended from per tyre and each to per tonne. Additionally, the adopted minimum fee at waste sites for loads under 250 kilos is $27 for loads under 250 kilos. Currently, the adopted refuse fees for waste facility with weighbridge, scrap steel, car bodies and white goods is $23 per visit. It is proposed that this fee be increased to $27 per visit to align with the minimum charge, and that the unit measurement is amended from per visit to per tonne. I will recommend the report to you for your consideration, and if there are any specific queries. On the back, there's an attachment that breaks down a little bit more in detail for those new fees and amendments to the measurements. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you, Margaret. I think there was a discussion, I think General Manager John, about the hourly haul rates. The others, I guess, are consideration certainly from the team. Councillors, is there any questions or queries there? I just wanted to ask a question, John, about certainly the tonnage. With the tyres, what will that mean? I mean, I know most of your tyre businesses here charge a disposal fee per tyre.
Correct.
Will that change? Or?
So, Mr Mayor, the way that was originally adopted, it would have meant a considerable increase in the amount for each tyre. So it went from something like $15 or $17 a tyre to over $100 a tyre, based on the way it was written in the fees and charges. So this will actually see a fair increase, I suppose, to that. So it was just really an administrative error that we needed to sort out. And look, while I have got the floor, councillors, this was one of those discussions we had around the fees and charges back in earlier this year, that we were to come back and provide some other opportunities for hourly rate, capability at some of those other facilities. So I do apologise that has taken a little bit of time to come back, but I just wanted to make sure we had that right. And clearly the cemetery one, this doesn't happen very often, but if this does pop up, the opportunity or the need for an exhumation to occur, we didn't have that capability in the fees and charges. So I'm very happy to take any questions.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Mike. Now, we've got a couple of questions. Councillor Cypher.
Thank you. Question to General Manager McDougall. So with the Emerald Town Hall hourly rate for not-for-profit for the whole of complex, that includes the auditorium, the supper room, the bar, the foyer.
That's correct.
And if they can apply for sponsorship or in-kind or in-kind donation of that facility?
That's correct.
Is there provision if they didn't want, like for part hire, so if they had the auditorium, bar and foyer but didn't want the supper room, is there a opportunity to cut that part out?
I will need to double check that, Councillor Cypher. I'm sure there is just a supper room. I've got the fees and charges in front of me there.
Yeah.
I'm sure the room, the facility can be separated, but I will need to double check that before I commit.
Yeah, because I imagine, and I actually have run quite a few functions down there over many years, most not-for-profits wouldn't necessarily want the whole of the complex. They'd probably want the supper room taken out, or they'd only be using the bar area supper room. If there isn't a breakdown like that, I think there needs to be, because I can't, it'd be a very big function for a not-for-profit to be
That's
using
right.
the whole of the complex. So if there isn't, I'd like to see that there is that break-off, that they can take part of the hall. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Cyber. Councillor Daniels?
Thank you. Through the chair, also to John. John, what's the basis with the different rates, say between Ruby Vale Hall and Comet Hall, and that there's a community group rate at one, but not a community group rate at the other? Like, how did we reach those figures?
Good question, Councillor Cypher, through the chair.
Daniels.
Councillor Cypher, Councillor Daniels, sorry. It all comes down to what is available at those facilities. So we did talk about achieving some level of consistency across like facilities, if that makes sense, but it was really down to, so that was the determination. And look, in a community sense, we would love to have that consistency across all facilities, but it can't be like that, if that makes sense.
How come? Like, is there a cost to run or something like
Yeah,
that?
it may come down to cleaning costs, or it come down to, what is actually physically in those facilities, for instance. So there's got to be a level of representation or coverage there for whatever is in that particular facility.
Okay, great. And the second question I've got relates to the per tonne for the disposal of tyres. Is there communication that goes out to your tyre businesses so that they're able to accurately, estimate the costs that they need to recoup from their customers?
Yeah, I can follow it up and make sure that does happen. We normally do generate a cost per tyre that's based on that anyway. So a standard car tyre will be worth X amount, a standard truck tyre will be worth X amount, and a standard tractor tyre, for instance. So we can certainly do that for sure.
Probably, and then the communication back. Yeah, great, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Daniels. Councillor Burns?
Yeah, thank you. I forget what's the current hall cost for Emerald Town Hall? This is a new charge.
No, it's not a new charge.
Updated charge, I mean.
Sorry, it is an updated charge. I haven't got that in front of me, to be honest, on what the current one is, Councillor, but I can find that out for you and come back to you for sure.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm just concerned if we go too high, too much, it won't be used at all. But if people are still using it at that price, and that's all right.
Gotcha.
All right, thanks, Councillor Burns. It'd be good if we could just, we should be able to nearly drag up those old fees.
Well, that's what I was just quickly, through the chair,
we can just pause a minute and we...
I've got them in front of me if you'd like me to. So
the old ones, Councillor Daniels, if you got that'd be great.
I've got this financial year's ones.
That would be preferred if you, yep.
Okay, 22-23. So we're talking about, it's a new type of charge we're dealing with. So before that, we didn't have an hourly rate, but we had a half day hire of $405 and a full day of $810. So it's giving that flexibility of not having to do 4 hours.
That's right.
So initially you won't have that apples and apples comparison, but what the flexibility was there. I think the discussion started, remember when might have been the indoor cricket over at the showgrounds. We started that conversation off about that flexibility of the hourly rate. So in terms of, the organisations obviously that warranted a whole day hire, that was fine, but for someone that just wanted a certain time period, it was just, there was not much flexibility, so it really gave them few options. I think that's
and I'm supportive of that flexibility.
Yeah. So hopefully, Councillor Burns, that might be a little bit of an increase in terms of an hourly rate for a couple of those small groups, but it'll allow more groups to actually have that flexibility then to be able to use it. I think would be the
Through the chair, it is used very regularly. And also, based on Councillor Cypher's comment there before, we do issue quite a number of dispensations or fee waivers to not-for-profit organisations as well, like quite regularly.
Right. Sorry, go, Councillor.
You're right. The flexibility is, like, you've got to have the flexibility, but it is a big jump if you're looking at a not-for-profit at an hourly rate, before the day rate was, did you say 400? What did you say the day? 800 and... 810, and I'm assuming a full day is 8 hours. When you use the new hourly rate, and a lot of not-for-profits would use 8 hours because they have to do set up, pack up, plus the function. That is a fair jump if you're not then also allowing a discount for a full day. I mean, that would work out, if you were to work a full day out on $135, that's over $1,000. So if they wanted, a not-for-profit wanted to do a full, like 8 hours, book it for 8 hours on an hourly rate, then it is $1,080, but previously it was $810.
The biggest issue is the cleaning aspect of it. That's where that $135 an hour comes from, is that we would still need someone to go down there and clean it, whether they're there for 5 hours, 6 hours or a day.
Yeah, I know.
That's the hard bit.
They still can book for a full day.
Yes.
So you can still book it as a full day?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
But you're
That's
right.
what I was getting
Yeah,
at.
but you're
you
right,
need
Councillor
to be
Syphon.
able to...
It's an increase, yeah.
Yeah. But as long as you can book it at the cheaper rate for a full, you get a discount for the full day.
Yeah. I think what you'll find is hopefully, and I'm sure the team have thought about this, more people using different parts of it. They won't use the whole lot. If it was warranted to use the whole lot, they would use it for the full day. So, yeah.
I don't even have that in my report.
Just hit your button, thanks, Councillor Syphon.
Sorry.
Yep, Councillor Rolfe.
So going through you, Mayor, to John, going through the not-for-profit hire, hourly hire per hour is still $135. So for the Emerald Town Hall, there's no difference.
No, I'm just quickly reading here.
So are you saying that that's for the whole? Was there a difference in that one? In the original fees and charges, is there a difference between whole of complex or the supper room separate to the hall? I think this is where your confusion's going to come.
I do too. Now I'm just reading that. At $30 an hour.
Well, we've got a bit of time today, so it's not going to be direct comparison, is it? Because
No, it's not going to be, Mr. Mayor, but I still think there is, just the email I just quickly got, there is actually a fee in there at $30 an hour with a minimum of 2 hours. That doesn't make sense.
Well, councillors, guess what we can do? We've got a little bit of time today, so we'll just let that sit for the moment. Just sit there. We'll move to the next agenda item, and John can come back to that, and we'll deal with that. Is that okay, councillors?
Updated before we endorsed it.
We'll just get a bit more of a comparison. Yep. All right, so we'll just let that sit there. So yeah, that gets to your show holidays.
What about though?
Agenda item, which is for the special holidays for 2023. Only halfway through this one, but we'll
Thank you,
see
Mayor.
if we can lock and load for next year. Thank you, Sharon.
Thanks for that. So this is a report that comes each year to council on the back of a request for us to nominate whether we would like to apply for special public holidays to be observed each year for our community in relation to local agricultural shows. So the office, there's some information in the report as to the planned show days for 2023 in the different communities, and also the planned public holidays that relate to those shows for the different communities. So the recommendation is for the following dates to be gazetted as public holidays for 2023, which is Capella Thierry, 26th of May, Springsure, Rolleston, Bohinia, 2nd of June, Emerald Comet, Gemfields, 7th of June, and Blackwater Bluff, Dingo, Duringa areas, 7th of June. And in coming up with that recommendation, there has been engagement with the show committees to make sure that we've got those dates right. Thank you, Mayor.
Right. Councillors, any questions on those ones? Councillor Sypher, you still?
Oh, sorry.
No, you're right. I didn't think it was. I think that was from the last one. Yeah. Thank you, Councillor. We're on the same page. I was on it. All right. So, councillors, as you know, that circuit is pretty tight around here. Obviously, I think after this year, Comet are yet to reschedule. They're thinking about a couple of different formats for that. I think at some stage, I think they're going to have working dog trials and something else at some stage. Councillor Rolfe, you might elaborate on that.
Yeah, so, Mayor, I did think that they were going to reschedule, but they're not. They're having the working dog trials fairly shortly, I think, and they usually run their show on the weekend before Clermont.
Yep.
So, yeah, and then goes Capella, then Clermont. No, before Capella. So whichever weekend, the start of our circuit of shows. So.
And I'm certain that community didn't mind being disrupted by rain this year, and certainly disrupted a lot of us later on, which we're very grateful for. So normal transmission will resume next year, and obviously they're proposing that that show holiday date be the 7th of June. They'll have their own actual show on the weekend, as Councillor Rolfe said. So the recommendation is there that we adopt those dates. So Capella Thierry, Friday 26th of May, Springsure, Rolleston, Bohinia, 2nd of June, Emerald Comet, Gemfields, Blackwater Bluff, Dingo and Duringa will all observe the Emerald holiday on the 7th of June. Is someone happy to move that? Moved by Councillor Daniels, seconded Councillor Burns. All in favour? Councillor Brimble-Claim has voted in favour. Against? Thank you. Carried. We'll keep going. John, we don't need to come back to that yet. Information report. So, John, if you wanted to introduce your communities team, and we'll do that one, and we'll come back to that one just before Smoko, John. There's no hurry. So, 14.1.1 is a community engagement action plan, and I'll ask John to introduce that. Thank you, mate.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Good morning, councillors. Again, through the chair, today we're presenting our regular 6-monthly update of progress in the Community Engagement Action Plan. A number of teams across council execute the work, progressing this plan, including the customer service team and public relations team. The action plan is reported on by the community engagement team, as engagement is part of their core business. However, I would like to thank all departments within council for their contributions to the achieved outcomes. I'll now hand over to Katerina Hatzipanagiotis and Georgia Esplin to tell us more. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, General Manager McDougall. Through the Chair, the Community Engagement Action Plan is our 3-year action plan with progress reporting to Council every 6 months. This report today covers the period from January to June 2022. I'll just switch to the next slide.
So, Kat and Georgie, Councillor Brimble-Claim is obviously peering over your shoulder, so...
Yep. Let's make sure we've got that up. Yep.
We'll just share this so that people can see it. There we go. Councillor Brimble-Claim, that's shared with you. Can you see that?
No, it's not showing up, but I can read it on the far screen. Thank you.
Okay, you've got that in your agenda, the presentation. Thank you, Councillor Brimble-Claim. Okay.
Thank you.
So the Community Engagement Action Plan reflects the recommendations outlined in the Community Plan Refresh Community Engagement Report, which was endorsed by Council in January 2020. This document is an organisation-wide plan for how Council engages with the community and integrates feedback into our everyday operations. So our Council's community engagement process enables Council to receive feedback through 8 engagement methods. Our 8 engagement methods are 1, community consultation, 2, customer service, 3, engagement on council projects, 4, community reference groups, 5, special interest groups, 6, community funding programs, 7, regional engagement, and 8, participatory budgeting. We'll now provide our progress update against each of these engagement methods. Method 1's community consultation. A total of 20 community consultation dates have been scheduled for 2022. Over the reporting period of January to June, 7 consultations were held in Bohinia, Doringa, Buckland and Treswell, Orion, Blackwater, Dingo and Bluff. Over the remainder of the year, the remaining 13 consultations would be held. Method 2 is customer service. In customer service, we've achieved 100% of our actions. The whole of Council works towards meeting the requirements in the Customer Service Charter. The Customer Service Performance Report for Q3 was presented to Council on the 27th of April, and Q4 will be presented on the 29th of July, including the results of the recent Customer Service Satisfaction Survey. Highlight of the survey found that Council has an overall satisfaction rate of 98%, and reporting to Council will continue on a quarterly schedule. I'm going to hand over to Georgia to cover some of our next engagement.
Thank you, Kat. The next method that we will be reporting on is engagement on council projects. In the last 6 months, Council has engaged with community stakeholders on a number of projects, including the Draft Resource Recovery Waste Management Strategy Survey, the Central Highlands Water Security Project, the Regional Economic Development Incentive Survey, the Gemfields Planning Study Expression of Interest Survey, the Fairburn Dam 50th Birthday Event Feedback Survey, and more. Council has been using Have Your Say Central Highlands to facilitate engagement online, with 763 responses this reporting period. We have continued sharing engagement resources with teams across Council in this period with the Sport and Recreation and Library teams. Council departments have consulted with community on 24 projects in the last 6 months. The data from these consultations has or is being reviewed and will be considered for future changes to Council operations and processes. From late May to early July 2022, the Environment and Waste team consulted with the community on the Draft Resource Recovery Waste Management Strategy to collect feedback. Over the consultation period, the team had stalls at both of the Emerald and Springshaw agricultural shows and Agro. They attended 5 CRG meetings and held 11 drop-in sessions at community halls or transfer stations across the region. Paper copies of the survey were also available at council offices, libraries and transaction centres. This consultation closed on the 3rd of July and the findings are now under review. We received 225 survey responses and 409 people viewed the project page. The next method is community reference groups. This year we've held 23 community reference group meetings across the 13 communities. Some groups requested the cancellation of their Q1 meetings due to COVID-19, while others took place online or were held face-to-face, with some having the option to join online as well. CRG meetings for the remainder of 2022 have been scheduled, published and promoted. The community engagement team continue to collate relevant media release updates to be shared with the community at each meeting. Subcommittees for specific topics of interest are also taking place across the communities. An example of this is the committee formed to progress the Have a Go Community Connections event that took place in the Gemfields. On the 30th of April 2022, Council held the Have a Go Community Connections event in Rubyvale. This event was a CRG highlight for this reporting period. The intention of the event was to connect community and encourage positive mental health and well-being following 2 flood events in the Gemfields in 2021. The event had 379 attendees. The event was planned and hosted in collaboration with the Gemfields Community Reference Group. A committee was formed to assist in planning, and this group worked together to co-design the event to ensure that it met the needs of the 4 communities of the Gemfields. There were a number of free workshops and activities on offer to promote positive mental health and wellbeing, including meditation sessions, yoga, craft activities, and musical workshops. Community groups, clubs, and service providers were invited to have a stall to promote their services and encourage connection. There was also free food, rides, performances from the Yeppoon Ukulele Movement and an African drumming workshop delivered by Happy Africa Art. Blue Gem Tourist Park and the Rotary Club of Emerald provided catering. And the Mr. Whippy ice cream van distributed free ice cream. This event was funded by the Queensland Government Localised Mental Health Initiative and the Regional Arts Development Fund. Rides were funded through the Youth Development Team's operational budget. Another CRG highlight for this reporting period was the Bluff Curry Night. Bluff CRG started planning a community connection event last year. The event was held on the 19th of June. Bluff Curry in the Park was a success, with catering donated by Village on Blaine. We had 50 people attend, and all in attendance said that it was an enjoyable way to spend a chilly night in Bluff. There was a good mix of people in attendance, with teenagers, young families, couples and seniors coming along to enjoy the evening together. The next method is special interest groups. Over the last 6 months, council officers have engaged in 2 human and social recovery group meetings, 3 Emerald Interagency Network meetings, 2 Blackwater Interagency Network meetings, 3 Central Highlands Arts and Cultural Advisory Committee meetings, 1 Traffic Advisory Group meeting, 1 Road User Group meeting, 2 Sport and Active Recreation Advisory Committee meetings, 2 Emerald Airport Advisory Group meetings, 4 Regional Youth Alliance Network meetings, 4 Central Highlands Suicide Prevention Leadership Group meetings, 2 Central Highlands Mental Health Stakeholder Group meetings, 2 Local Disaster Management Group meetings, and 2 Emerald Sale Yards Coordination Committee meetings. And I'll now pass on to Kat to give an update on community funding programs.
Thank you, Georgia. Between January and June 2022, 3 grant rounds were offered by Council. Round 1 of our 2022 Community Grants Program saw a total of 39 eligible grant applications received across the 3 categories, and 24 clubs across the Central Highlands were successful in obtaining grants totalling over $160,000. The next round will be open very soon, closing on the 31st of August. The Regional Arts Development Fund held 2 successful rounds, awarding more than $60,000 to successful applications. Some of these projects include a performance by local students at the Springshaw Camp Draft event, a commemorative mosaic in Lions Park in Emerald, and glass workshops with local artist Michelle Gray. 2 great success stories from our community grants program are pictured here. These 2 grants were acquitted in this 6-month period. St Vincent de Paul Emerald were successful in their grant bid for new flooring. St Vincent de Paul's application stated that their ambition was to provide a centre of which the Emerald community can be proud. The new flooring makes the space reflect the care that the staff and volunteers have for the centre. Orion Primary Parents and Citizens Association were successful in their grant bid to shade the tennis wall. As a result, the area will be used considerably more now that it is sun smart. The staff and students will be able to utilise this space for outdoor lessons as well as playtime. Method 7 is regional engagement. In this context, regional engagement refers specifically to the creation of strategic directions documents for each of the 13 communities, with involvement from the broader community beyond the CRG. It's remained on hold to ensure that it's well aligned with Council's strategic planning framework and the changes that were being undertaken as part of the development in the new corporate plan for that period of January to June. With the corporate plan 2022 to 27 now endorsed, regional engagement will remain on hold pending the outcomes of the corporate plan projects for the financial year 22-23 to review engagement methods and practices and to undertake the community visioning. Method 8 is participatory budgeting. This method involves investigating ways that Council can seek input from the community around budget allocation and decision making. Council undertook a workshop in December 2020 to consider participatory budgeting and its application for the organisation. At this meeting, Council deferred any further consideration of implementing this process, preferring to focus on its current community forums such as community reference groups and maturing the processes and feedback loops on our other engagement platforms. We've also included our Georgia.
No, you're right. Thanks, Kat. In addition to the reporting on the 8 engagement methods, we also report on the administrative processes that are required to support good governance and enable us to undertake the work that we do within the community. In the last 6 months, 100% of these actions were achieved by reporting to Council on the progress of the action plan, which we're doing today, and maintaining and updating Council's contact lists, such as the Human and Social Recovery Group, Relevant Annexures, and Emerald and Blackwater Interagency Networks. This slide shows the progress of the action plan in the 6 months from January to June 2022. Overall, 100% of targets were met. 2 of the targets have no action required and hence they don't contribute to the total. So participatory budgeting and regional engagement both had no actions required this reporting period, and community consultation, customer service, engagement on council projects, community reference groups, special interest groups, and community funding programs and administrative processes all had 100% of targets met. Our team have a lot to look forward to in the next 6 months. We're excited for Seniors Month in October 2022. Our annual luncheon will be held in Capella this year, and we will continue with delivering gift boxes for those who are unable to join. The implementation of Smarty Grants and My Community Directory is underway, and we're working on promoting these services to our communities once they launch. In the next 6 months, we will continue to focus on building our networks and maintaining our strong connections with agencies in the region to ensure our communities are connected and supported. We are also excited to be involved in the long-term community visioning and engagement review projects to ensure Council is undertaking best practice engagement and capturing our community's vision for the future to determine a common goal to work towards. We look forward to presenting the progress of these items in our next report to Council. On behalf of the Community Engagement team, I would like to thank our Mayor, Councillors and CEO, as well as Council's Customer Service, Public Relations and Events, Finance, Libraries, Youth Development and Indigenous Development teams for collaborating towards valuable engagement with our communities. I would also like to thank the service providers, community reference group members and the broader community for all of the support and valued contributions over this period. We're grateful for these connections and we really look forward to continuing to work with everyone moving forward. We are now happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Georgie and Kat. And I know there's a bigger team and there's a few photos scattered throughout there, so thank you for that. Councillors, that is a terrific update and decision, sorry, not a decision requirement, but an information report. But any questions or comments to the team? Councillor Robb.
The comment, I'll just make comment about the seniors and the lunch and how the, for those that can't come to lunch, so much appreciate the actual little gifts that we deliver around. That it makes a whole lot of difference to a lot of people. So thank you for continuing it.
Thank you, Councillor Roth.
Thanks, Councillor Roth. Councillor Cypher.
Just a comment as well. I'd just like to congratulate the team. You are a small team, but you do a tremendous amount of work and work not only out in the community, but support behind the scenes with other departments. And I think that really does need to be noted. So congratulations, and you're very much appreciated.
Thank you so much, Councillor Cypher.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Well, as I said before, it's a great update, team, and I really look forward to them. And obviously, I think as a report card, I think that's an A+, because it's quite substantive. You didn't mark yourself that, but I think, as Councillor Cypher just said, very much appreciated, and a lot of work that we don't see oftentimes, but we know it's getting done, and our community certainly appreciates it. So, Councillors, that recommendation is there that we received that half-yearly Community Engagement Action Plan, 2020 to 2022, for the period 1 January to 30 June 2022. Is someone happy to move that? Moved by Councillor Cypher, seconded Councillor Carpenter. All in favour? Councillor Brimelcomb's voted in favour. Against? Carried. It would have been sneaky if Councillor Brimelcombe voted against it or something just behind you there, girl. So, all good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. Thank you, and thank you, John. Councillors, our next report is in relation to the Australian Local Government Association Conference. Our CEO has put together this report with her two thumbs, I think, mainly at the time, but certainly, can I just say on behalf of the council representative, Councillor Burns, Deputy Christine and myself, thank Sharon very much for obviously corralling us around, even though it was her first ALGA conference. Certainly found it very, very interesting, and despite being quite cold, it was quite topical and certainly a very interesting debates motion at the conference, but I'll let the CEO pass that report on. Thank you, Sharon.
Thanks very much, Mayor. So yes, it was my first conference, and even though it was cold, I really enjoyed the cold. So it was harking back to old times. So the Australian Local Government Association 2022 National General Assembly was held from the 19th to the 23rd of June. I should say that the regional forum component of that was on the 19th, and then the remaining days were for the National General Assembly. My report summarises points of interest from the presentations that were provided during the National General Assembly. It doesn't go into the motions, but I'll speak to those now. So the conference was attended by myself as well as Mayor Hayes, Deputy Mayor Rolfe and Councillor Burns. And it was a very, very interesting conference, and a very good chance also to meet with other CEOs and other mayors, deputy mayors and councillors from across Australia. In terms of the motions, so procedurally, the conference ran out of time to debate all of the motions. There were hundreds of motions. I haven't got the figure with me, but there were hundreds of motions, and the conference ran out of time to debate those motions, and the President of ALGA did acknowledge that on the last day, that there hadn't been enough time allocated for the debate of motions, and that this would be rectified sort of procedurally and in the agenda for the next conference. So for the motions that were not able to be gotten to, and that was roughly half of them, there was a motion passed for the ALGA board to consider those motions and adopt those on behalf of members. So procedurally, it's all correct. So in terms of the motions that Central Highlands Regional Council put up, which has been the subject of council reports in this meeting previously, all of the motions that were covered were adopted, and we've got no reason to think that any of the other motions that were not covered wouldn't be adopted. So other than that, I'll just take questions if there are any from councillors or comments, and same from the other councillors who attended. You might want to speak to the motions, to the report.
And can I say, I did not prompt the CEO, current CEO, against the performance of the previous CEO in presenting his ALGA report that used to go for a world record hour and a half sometimes. So if Scott Mason is watching, thank you, Scott. But Sharon has recorded these diligently, and certainly if councillors, other councillors had some comments to make, Councillor Burns or Councillor Rolfe, all I would say is that certainly in the substantive motion, I think that probably was, and I'm not assuming this was a priority agenda item for all local governments, but they certainly, it would be in their top 2 or 3, is that the financial assistance grants debate is quite interesting. It's not, I don't believe that there's a significantly substantive difference in what councils are asking for, but I think the way they're approaching it is, and that was why I think motion 4, there was actually competing motions from, I think in the first instance it was Parks, and I think there was another Western New South Wales council, quite frankly in very close geographical location, and the approaches are quite different. The Parks one probably reflects the Local Government Association of Queensland position, which is an acknowledgement probably of the current methodology, and given that we have that, then at least they want fags to be at least 1% of total taxation, which would increase the ask would be an effectively $2.4 billion extra, whereas in a kind of irony, a couple of the really, really good keynote speakers who were probably statistical people provided information that said even if you achieved $2.4 billion, if you looked at the, I suppose you'd say, the degradation of financial assistance grants since 1996 to the current date, we would kind of be owed $3.6 billion. So 2.4 doesn't actually get us up to probably where we notionally should be. So notwithstanding that, the debate was around the fact that one approach is recognising the current methodology and requesting a number or a percentage, whereas the other one's more or less saying, could there be a review of the methodology? One of those keynote speakers did indicate that, I think there's been an argument that, don't play around with the methodology. And the truth is, over the, 1996, so what's that, almost 30 years, so of the financial assistance grants that originally came, I think, from the Whitlam government might have started, I think they might have referred to the concept, but certainly the methodology has changed quite a bit. It's been reviewed a number of times, but in more contemporary times, I think 1996 was the last probably significant Commonwealth review. So at the end of the day, that was the two different things. I guess, fundamentally though, the unanimous, I suppose, position of all councils is they're not getting enough money. Our QAO reports and reports to, and certainly experiences in Victoria, New South Wales, and other people we spoke to with capping and a really regulatory rates and charges sort of methodology. It's just getting harder and harder. If other levels of government are recognising that local government does actually deliver things and put them on the ground, then we're not getting enough money to keep sustaining those at the current level. So whatever that debate might be, and I think I intimated yesterday in our strategic and briefing forum that the Local Government Association of Queensland position was certainly the Parks position in recognising the current methodology and asking for 1%, whereas our motion was actually in line with 2 or 3 other councils that actually suggested, could they look at the methodology to make it better? And I guess there is a certain reluctance by local governments sometimes to sort of poke the bear. They're sort of saying, we're getting this money, don't mess around with it, because it could mean that we get less. And some would argue that the recent review by the Queensland Grants Commission resulted in some councils actually having their funds reduced, and we were one of them. So I guess they could point to that, but I guess at the end of the day, that was certainly, it was well debated, and it was very close in the end. So, but they weren't completely mutually exclusive, and it was quite an odd way of debating it. They put the two motions competing against each other, rather than one being debated before the other. So it was quite complex, and and probably the actual general forum went downhill from there. We didn't complete them. A number of councils that had come there to actually, that is their day out, to actually speak to their motion, were very disappointed, I can tell you. So, people that have travelled quite a ways to get to a microphone to actually debate two motions were then denied that opportunity, and that's kind of a bit disappointing. So, but anyhow, that was my observations. Councillor Daniels?
I had a question, but if Councillor Rolfe wants to do an observation, I'll switch mine off.
Oh, there's democracy at work. Thank you, Councillor Daniels.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. Just on the finance one too, there was 13, so there was 13 motions on the financial assistance grants at the LGA conference, and the chair of ALGA, Councillor Linda Scott, had already received confirmation from the government, from the very new government, that there wasn't going to be an actual increase to 1%. So we're still debating on an increase, but as the Mayor's saying, there's a section of the community that are asking for the methodology to be changed, while the other ones are saying, well, let's get the increase first before we check the methodology. So it's all very confusing, isn't it, Mayor?
It is. I think they're referring to it as indexation at this stage. So I think the President of ALGA was rightly claiming that certainly from a peak body perspective, they had the new federal Labor government agree to indexation, whatever that means. And she wasn't able to elaborate, so I'm sure I don't know. But that may be something that we will see. So, you know, in effect, if that trickles down to the states, it'll be interesting to see how that distribution might happen. And, you know, that may have an effect on our budgets, but I guess I think the federal budget's not till October. So we probably won't see that articulated, I don't think, till then. Sorry, Councillor Daniels, yeah.
Thank you. And I guess it's probably a question to Sharon, but also to anyone that attended. And thank you very much for the report, Sharon. I guess, is there any sort of takeaways from the conference or the report that you're then wanting to sort of discuss further with us as a council, or, you know, things that I guess benefits from going to the conference?
Thanks, Councillor Daniels. I think that, as the Mayor alluded to, the real takeaway for me, apart from having the opportunity to meet many of my fellow CEOs, but the real takeaway for me was around the actual percentage of services that local government provides versus the amount of the percentage of funding of Commonwealth tax revenue that local government receives, and it's 25% versus 4% or something like that. So even if the 1% of Commonwealth tax revenue that is being agitated for came to local government, it was still like $1 billion short of the cost of the services that we provide. So even if we were successful ALGA was successful in lobbying on our behalf to get to 1% of Commonwealth tax revenue, and it's currently 0.55% of Commonwealth tax revenue comes to us via the assistance grants. We're still very short. And so there was a presenter, which I was just looking for my notes to get his name, but we can discuss this. There was a presenter who was talking about horizontal
Fiscal.
equalisation. Yeah. And that it does work, that it really does work, and that it should be properly funded, and taking account of the differences in regions and locations, you know, length of road versus rate space, for example. There should be a smoothing out, and there really should be a methodology that allows for that smoothing out, because it does work. And so I think that was the really big takeaway. There were lots of other it was 3 days and plus a regional forum, so there were lots of other takeaways, but that one really got me, that we are right to lobby for more funding from federal assistance, via federal assistance grants or other operational grants, not just one-off capital grants that add that help us build things, but add to our burden ultimately. We are right to do that. And the other thing that was covered on that front was around that what our operating funding is attached to. So unlike federal taxation, which is attached to economic growth or growth of the economy, so taxation goes up if the economy grows, our ability to tax via rates is just a straight property tax, so it's not attached to economic growth as directly as the federal tax revenue. And so there's even more of an argument for the percentage to increase as federal tax increases due to growth. Then our percentage should increase like on a sliding scale so that it reflects economic growth. There was a lot of information put to us that help us with those arguments and with that advocacy and lobbying, and it's not just crying poor. It's right that the methodology should be adjusted.
I think it was Marcus Spiller.
Yeah.
And he was very confident, so which is pleasing, because I get the impression, I think anyone would get the impression that the local government isn't confident about what it's actually asking for. And this fellow was, quite refreshing, because he was absolutely confident. He sort of articulated, the effectiveness of tax rates and charges are the most direct and you know, if you direct, you know, if you levy an amount of money, you receive an amount of money. Other taxes that come through the federal system are quite diffuse. They actually tend to break down. So it was very good. I don't know whether they particularly had those speakers. He was a principal and partner at SGS Economics, so they're a big company. And he was, and there was actually a speaker on the last day as well that reiterated very much of that. So I guess there is a private sector that really understands this really, really well, or an economic sector that understands it really well. I can assure you that I don't think I've seen a federal local government minister that does, even though they might come from local government. The new local government minister is Kristen McBain. I always get that wrong. Who was Mayor of Bega Valley, I think, in New South Wales. So yes. She became the federal member for Eden Monaro and now is a minister. So it would, on the face of it, she would seem to be a very, very operational type of mindset. So I think she will certainly get her hands into her portfolio. So it'll be interesting to see the relationship with Alga and Councillor Rolfe.
Just wanted to say that the Prime Minister, in a media statement, has National Cabinet will invite a representative of local government to future meetings of National Cabinet. So we haven't had a representative in National Cabinet for some years. I'm not sure how long. And they have agreed to meet a minimum of 4 times a year. So that, and there will be a meeting before the federal government in October 22. So that augurs well for the local government, Australian Local Government Association, to have a representative actually at those meetings. Thanks.
Yeah. All right.
The second speaker was Graham Jarvis from the AEC group. He spoke about the economic growth and federal taxation being attached to economic growth as opposed to council rates. So we have sought, and they're slowly coming through, the presentations that were provided at the forum, and they're being loaded onto the, made available for councillors to be able to see that data and those presentations as they come through.
All right, councillors. Well, that's the report. The recommendation is there that we receive the CEO's report of the Australian Local Government Association. Thank you very much, Sharon, for that regional forum and the National General Assembly. Is someone happy to move that? Moved by Councillor Carpenter. Seconded, Councillor Cypher. All in favour? Councillor Brimilcone voted in favour. Against? Thank you. Carried. John, are you happy for us to revisit councillors? We'll dive back to that agenda item. It's in relation to the fees and charges. Item 12.2.3. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, councillors, I need to apologise here. What I would be looking to do, there's what has occurred is the fees and charges, Councillor Cypher alluded to it there before, have gone up on the website already. What I would prefer to do, Mr Mayor, just so that I can have my staff make sure that appropriate fees and charges have been provided to anyone that has made a booking just recently, and this only happened in recent days, if I could either have the report lay on the table and or pull the report and come back in the next council meeting, if that's okay, through the chair. I do apologise profusely, but I just need to make sure that this gets cleaned up and is correct to come back to you with the correct information. The way the report reads, and that's why that confusion has come there through Councillor Burns as well, that it doesn't look right, and that's because that information has already been put up on the website, and I apologise profusely, but I just need to clean this up, Mr Mayor, and the only way I can see that happening rightly is to actually pull the report and bring that back to the next General Council meeting.
So just on that basis, thank you, gentlemen, John. I appreciate that. Just deferring to the CEO, we might then defer this item rather than actually leave it on the table, because if in fact we're going to actually amend potentially what the recommendation might be, rather than do that and then have a really long process of red lines and recorrections. Can we defer this report to the next council meetings so that it gets its proper attention and the proper information is provided to us? So, you happy with that, Sue?
Yes, that's fine, thank you.
So, councillors, that recommendation for 12.2.3 will be that we defer the discussion in relation to the adopted fees and charges to the next council meeting. So, moved by Councillor Syker, seconded Councillor Daniels. I'm not going too fast for you there, Marty? That is Marty there, isn't it? Yes, it is. Councillor Brimblecombe, you're happy with that? Okay, so all in favour? Against? Thank you, councillors. Thank you, John. We can get that sorted. Yeah.
Apologies, Mr.
Right. Councillors, that is all the reports that I believe we're going to do in open session. We need to go into closed session now. Is someone happy that we move to go into closed session? Moved by Councillor Carpenter, seconded Councillor Daniels. All in favour? Councillor Brimblecombe's in favour. Against? Thank you. Now we'll go into closed session, councillors. Now, thank you all our officers that have been in the room, including Sasha/Sarah. just about to do that, Mark.
Okay.
Can you just pony his head?
No, I'm just asking for
All
your
right, no, it's all good. No, you don't need to do that.
Okay.
All right, councillors, the recommendation is there that the Central Highlands Regional Council adopts the organisational structure as presented in accordance with Section 196, Section 1 of the Local Government Act 2009 as a resourcing necessary for the performance of the local government responsibilities and in delivering the requirements of the corporate and operational plans. Someone happy to move that? Moved by Councillor Cyphers, seconded Councillor Rolfe. It's a bit of a irony, I think last time we did this, they were the movers and seconders as well. So, all in favour? Against? Councillor Brimblecomb's voted for. Thank you, Councillor Brimblecombe. Carried. Thank you very much, Maggie. And thank you very much to the work that your teams have done. I understand that every GM has a responsibility of settling this down through the organisation, so I appreciate that very much. And thank you very much, Mark. You've been here in an unique position in sort of, I guess you'd say, getting your team to understand and be part of that change. So thank you very much. Councillor, as I said before, and are we back on live stream? Thanks, Marnie. I think it's appropriate. I mean, there's been a number of occasions where, certainly with General Manager Michelle Webster and Margaret together, we've acknowledged their work at some opportunities that we've had prior to them leaving Central Highlands Regional Council. Today is Margaret's Day. And I guess having done it a couple of times, we get the opportunity of thinking a little harder and a little more about the contributions that you have made to a place. And sometimes they're very, very hard to see, certainly from a board perspective. You know, we see certainly the work that as leader of the, that particular busy part of our organisation is in this place. And we get to see a lot of the work that you do behind the scenes. We probably see you busiest at certainly between February and June when you are responsible for, wrapping up what we've managed to achieve in the financial year just gone and certainly preparing, the region and the council for the next budget going forward. But can I say a couple of comments about your tenure here, certainly as General Manager? It'd be fair to say that over that period of time, the environment from a financial perspective has been quite difficult. And when I say that, not exceeding your skills, but obviously really, really particular and peculiar financial circumstances that our organisation was experiencing and our broader economy was experiencing. And I think on reflection, if I had to say there was one thing, it was your determination to make sure that we absolutely, as a board and as individual directors, had all the information and a very, very correct and a very, very fair evaluation of where we sat. Where we decided to, I guess you'd say, decide and make decisions around that is up to us, but at the end of the day, we always felt comfortable we had the information we needed to have. We settled in a new technology-based system into our organisation that was quite problematic. We're not the first place that's had that problem, but it compounded, I guess, and it always levels back at the information we collect is broadly collected, and the really significant part of it that has a meaningful sort of impact on how we go happens through finance, and that's been quite a difficult time. But through the APCI, through the asset management, through your challenges with your team, with mentoring your team, and your general finance team that always looks very, very small but performs a lot of work. Margaret, they need a strong person to lead them, and you were that. We're not here to comment on your personality traits. They are what's necessary to actually make something work, and that's what we invested in, and that's what we will give it. And you've always provided your best to us. So I will say to you that you came to this place with a great knowledge, great skills, a great sense of fashion in footwear, and we'll always remember that. But look, I guess what we need to say to you is all the best for your future. I know that clearly that asset that you brought to us is an asset to a lot of people. We're very grateful for the time you shared it with us, and we're a better place for it. So thank you, Margaret.
Thank you very much, Mayor Hayes. Thank you very much, Mayor Hayes. I'd just like to say a couple of things. Mainly to councillors, I'd like to say thank you to you for your leadership, support, encouragement, for frank and fearless advice and passion for your communities. And thank you for considering reports tabled with often difficult and challenging information for you to make decisions with. Both the previous council and you have always approached the chamber and ELT with a one-team collegiate environment that I've never experienced before, that is an environment that's considerate, caring, professional and respectful. And so I thank you for giving me that experience and opportunity in the chamber. So the organisation and the community are very fortunate to have you as leaders of council. Thank you.
Thanks, Margaret. And I guess we're all invited to appropriately go down and share a morning tea with Margaret and reflect on all those good stories. But councillors, just before we do, is there any general business that's burning? All right. Councillor Brimblecombe, no general business?
No general business, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brimblecombe. Well, there being no further business, I'll declare the meeting closed at 10:39. So thank you, everyone.